Of all the horror I grew up watching, Toby Hooper's Salem's Lot scared me more than just about anything else by a good margin. In fact, go into any Gen X or 70s and 80s nostalgia groups on social media, and you'll find it frequently mentioned as one of the most frightening movies anyone of that age group can recall. Certain scenes in this film have become iconic horror movie moments, and are still effective even today, almost 45 years after its release. The film is a slow burn, especially in its first half, and would probably struggle to hold a modern audience's attention. But it builds steadily and develops into a masterclass in atmospheric horror, which is far and away my favorite kind of horror. In this video, I'll give you some examples of the sort of nuance and attention to detail on the part of the actors and production crew that have made Salem's Lot such an enduring classic. We'll start off with a couple of relatively minor moments here, beginning with a few scenes in which James Mason speaks volumes without uttering a word, giving us insight into the character of Richard Straker. In the first scene, he's just given Larry Crockett instructions for having Barlow's crate picked up from the Custom House wharf in Bangor. After Crockett leaves, Straker eases himself into a chair and looks as if he's struggling to compose himself. He seems genuinely frightened here, and I notice that Hooper's camera work positions him near a skull that strongly resembles Barlow. We then have a second scene in which Straker has a similar disturbed expression while watching Cully's truck pull out of town. I've often wondered what James Mason was thinking and working to convey in these scenes. Is Straker frightened of something going wrong and bringing his undead master's wrath down on him? Is he frightened of being discovered somehow, possibly when he's stalking about trying to bring Barlow his first victim? I imagine it's a little of all of this. Chillingly, though, he does not appear to be bothered by snatching innocent young Ralphie Glick and offering him to a monster. When he leaves the boy in the basement of the Marston house, he seems quite pleased with himself. Later on in the film, he's also obviously pleased to mock Father Callahan during the confrontation with Barlow. In these and other moments, Mason gives us a man who is thoroughly the body servant of evil, outwardly genteel, even fastidiously clean and neat, while at the same time living in a filthy house and standing guard over a vile secret. Another outstanding, understated character moment in this film comes when Susan Norton, played by Bonnie Bedelia, visits Ben's room at Eva Miller's boarding house and runs into Eva herself, portrayed by Marie Windsor. Eva is obviously weak at this point in the movie and tells Susan that her husband, Weasel Phillips, is coming to visit her in her dreams. It's obvious that she has no more than one more night among the living before she joins the undead, and Marie Windsor portrays her in these scenes as though she's sleepwalking between worlds. When Susan suggests that she go and lie down, Eva stands and gives her an intense, slightly confused stare, very similar to Marjorie Glick's vacant expression when she first wakes to life in the morgue scene. Bonnie Bedelia genuinely seems a little unnerved here. Then, as she's on her way out, Eva turns and gives Susan a last lingering look. These are slow, quiet moments in the film, but Marie Windsor's performance charges them with dread. Something within her, the darkness that is slowly growing and will soon take over entirely, seems to be marking Susan, almost as if to say, "I'll remember you." The next scenes I'd like to point out are among the better-known moments in the film, but I want to bring your attention to some especially good touches here, and what I think Toby Hooper may be trying to convey to us. We're in the middle of Danny Glick's funeral on Harmony Hill. Notice what happens. Father Callahan petitions God to bless the grave and send his angel to watch over it, committing Danny's body to the ground. Danny's mother then passes out, and while everyone is distracted by this, shadows fall as clouds suddenly cover the face of the sun. Ben, played of course by David Soul, is the only one who seems to notice this, and we see him give a visible shudder. Later, after the service concludes and people leave the cemetery, all except for Mike Ryerson, played by Jeffrey Lewis, nature seems to be whipped into a fury. Again, we see clouds covering the sun, and as Mike begins shoveling dirt into Danny's grave, a fierce wind begins to blow. Mike seems to physically weaken as all of this is happening, and is mysteriously drawn to the grave, as though he's hearing something the viewer can't. Of course, anyone who has seen the film knows what happens next. Mike opens the coffin and is attacked by Danny, who is truly frightening with his yellow eyes and grave pale skin, contrasted by the dark suit he's wearing and the red satin of the coffin he's lying in. The color contrasts here are visually arresting. All of this is creepy enough by itself, but reading between the lines here in the writing and directing choices, I get the impression that what we're being shown is heaven and earth rejecting this burial. Father Callahan is trying to lay this child in sanctified ground with the blessing of the church. But Danny has become an evil thing. Heaven will not bless this internment, and earth will not receive him. This is why we see cosmic forces stirring around the grave, and why Danny lies awake within his coffin even during the day. He cannot rest in this ground. Perhaps I'm reading too much into all of this, but it makes sense to me, and it's a master stroke of atmospheric storytelling, conveyed as it is without a word of exposition. The final example here comes from what may be the scariest moments in the film, the scenes everyone talks about the most, Vampire Ralphie's 2 attacks on his brother Danny, where he comes scratching at the windows. In my opinion, Ralphie Glick, beautifully portrayed by Ronnie Scribner, is easily the scariest child vampire ever, with his pale face, bright yellow eyes, and that ghastly smile. There's a line in the Salem's Lot novel that's applied to Danny Glick when he turns up at Mark Petrie's window, but I think it actually works better when applied to Ralphie here. The thing at the window tried to smile, but it had lain in darkness too long to remember precisely how. That's exactly what I get from Ralphie here. It's very unsettling. When you compare the 2 attack scenes, however, something else emerges that makes all of this even more chilling. The first time Ralphie comes for Danny in his bedroom at home is when he's giving us that hideous grin. The second time, though, when he comes for Danny at the hospital, he's no longer smiling. All of the friendly pretense is gone. Danny belongs to him now, and he knows it. When he comes to the window this time, he's all business, even impatient. I first heard this contrast pointed out in a discussion on YouTube, but I don't remember who it was that said it, or I'd give credit. They were absolutely right, though, and the observation took these scenes, which were scary enough already, to a different level for me, not only making them more atmospheric and horrifically effective, but enhancing my appreciation for the craftsmanship that went into making this film even more. By the way, if you've ever wondered why Ralphie shows up at Danny's window wearing pajamas while he was taken in regular street clothes, and shows up that way again in Barlow's lair at the end of the film, I direct you to this video by Salem's Lot fan extraordinaire Boogeyman Ben. He goes into a great explanation on his channel, and I'm convinced that he has the answer. I won't spoil his thunder by going into it here, though, so if you're interested, I'd encourage you to head over to his Horror Zone channel and check it out. Well, folks, there you have it. Several standout moments that make Salem's Lot a timeless classic of atmospheric horror. Let me know what you think of my observation in the comments, and feel free to add more of your own. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, please consider subscribing to the channel, and sharing the content with anyone you feel may be interested. Until next time.
You can do nothing against the master.